I have opened the phone lines because
Yes.
I am perplexed by this story. So, in the Times, we have Reeves. Britain needs a dose of Trump positivity. Now, I know...
Sorry.
I know.
Well, you can't really help it. It's somewhat of an involuntary reaction when you hear complete nonsense.
Well, I do find it extraordinary. So Britain must learn from President Trump's positivity and be more optimistic if it is to revive the animal spirits and turn the economy round, according to Rachel Reeves. Now, she is, of course, the Chancellor.
For now.
For now. Inside the papers, it says, we've got our best days ahead of us, and I know what needs to be done. Now, I take the view that Rachel Reeves doesn't know what needs to be done and has done everything possible to make every single mistake that you could possibly make. That first of all, she's turned to use a technical term, Keynesian economics, which is basically tax and spend. Never works, never did, except in absolutely exceptional circumstances when private capital is not available. When private capital is available, use it. Governments are there to facilitate. Governments are there to channel. Governments are there to legislate. And also, it's not their money. It's not your money, as in yours and mine, when you come to look at rich people or otherwise. It's other people's money, and you have to persuade them that they should give it to you in order for you to do the job that central government needs to do. She's confused that with thinking that she and her team are the, I don't know, the wheels of economic growth. Now, if you're talking about infrastructure, OK, that can help. But other than that, I don't see that there's anything that she can do. So I'm asking you to tell Rachel Reeves this morning what needs to be done. I'll give you my thoughts, but I'd like to hear yours. 0344 499 1000. If you run a business, if you work for one of the businesses, for example, we've seen the story, Peter, that Sainsbury's and Morrison's and all the supermarkets are saying we're going to cut jobs. And we're going to cut jobs because of Rachel Reeves' changes to national insurance. We need to maintain our profit margins. We're going to become more efficient. We're going to make changes. We're going to fire people, which for anybody losing your job is a horrendous place to be. Presumably, when she made the U-turn on non-DOMs, she should start to think about other U-turns. What do you think Rachel Reeves should be doing?
Well, first of all, she should probably pack up her office and leave. I think that would be the first best thing that she could do for the country.
OK, I understand that's a headline grabber, but...
No, but in all seriousness, I do genuinely believe that, because I think that she is actually one of the main obstacles, because of the exact thing you've just explained, is that she has fundamentally confused the role of government. She thinks it is the government's job to drive all of this stuff. It is government needs to get out of the way. This is the big argument that we always have, is what is the role of the government when it comes to the economy? And for me, it is always about it should clear the path and let private
Blair
enterprise
started it, Brown continued it, and every Tory leader also proliferated this view that the Westminster bubble and blob needs to be in charge and control, forgetting the role that Thatcher, I think, really spelt out clearly, which is it's your money. And when she said it's your money, it's our job as government to spend it wisely. And it's our job to do the things that business and people and enterprise cannot do. And that means providing centralised education services for those who want them, but not taxing those who don't want them. Same with private health. If you want to have private health, be my guest, make your choice. It's the government's job to make the NHS as good as it can be, and actually to use private firms and private money and investment, you know, as best as it can, because this strange view that this wonderfully owned, you know, religion of the NHS can do absolutely everything. No, it can't.
No, it can't. And this is the thing, is that these people have been continually lying to themselves, and they've started to like drink their own Kool-Aid. And this is the problem. We're now wrapped up in, I think you use the term like religion correctly, is that they are these kind of acolytes. That they must always preach the beauty of the NHS, preach the beauty of the state, and how wonderful it is when you look at it in reality, in the cold, harsh light of day, that it isn't brilliant. It is crumbling. It is broken. And I've always said that if you want to save the NHS, save the BBC, save all these great public institutions, they must be first saved from their friends before they are saved from their enemies, because their friends are the ones that are killing it. The people like Starmer and Rachel Reeves and most of the Labour Party now, really, realistically, are part of this kind of upper middle class kind of way of looking at the world. And it's about a metropolitan view. And we're starting to see the real divide.
I don't have a problem with a metropolitan view, because I think you need to have different views depending on where you are. If you are living in a village, you want to have a village view. If you're living in the countryside, you want a countryside view. If you're living in an urban environment, you want an urban or metropolitan view. But also you have to recognise that other people have different ways of life that need to be respected. And also, there are things that you don't understand in your realm. So, as somebody who was brought up in a city, there are lots of things about the countryside I genuinely don't understand. But I have to respect those who live in that environment, that they know best when it comes to how to run a farm, how family businesses and families engage and different people engage in farming that give us our food. And there are plenty of problems with our supply chains and systems and the way that supermarkets are behaved and all that stuff. But also, we as consumers, I think, need to act more responsibly when it comes to making our choices. And I think politicians need to understand that, for example, if you are an entrepreneur, you take risk. Risk has a price, because you could lose all your money. You could lose all your investment if it goes wrong. You require people to take risk, and with risk comes reward, sometimes very big reward. And stop being the green-eyed monster. If somebody goes and does well, what is it in our country? If somebody does well, they're brilliant at what they do. Let them have it, let them keep it, let them enjoy it. You know, by all means, you've got your debt to society, a responsibility. I've always paid my tax. I have a responsibility. There are things that I would like the state to do that I can't do or I don't want to do. And for a society to work, you have to recognise that people need help in different ways. Fine, I get it. But when it starts to get over a certain point and you become disincentivized, what's the point in going out to work if you end up paying 70% pretty much in what you earn in tax? It's just like, well, I might as well sit on my rear end.
Exactly. And, you know, I find it interesting that Rachel Reeves actually said that the benefit system had a perverse number of incentives. You know, the language has really shifted from Rachel Reeves and from the Treasury in general. You know,
well, I think maybe the penny's dropping.
It might seem to be, because, you know, she's talking about like the dropping of net zero over the putting
Quite
economic growth.
Look, by all means, if something is better. So, I've always been in favour of change. I don't know whether you agree, Peter, but, for example, if wind farms or alternative energies or solar or whatever, if all of those things are great, fine. Develop them, do them, make them available, allow us, the consumer, to choose where we get our energy. And if they can compete against the oil and gas and all these other things, fine. But you're forcing us to pay high energy prices because you're taking away stuff where it doesn't matter a scrap of difference what we do compared to what America does, what China does, what India does, what all these other nations do. And by the way, we've allowed political fools to wreck the technologies that we developed, that we pioneered, and should have put us ahead. And we allowed them for 20, 30, 40 years to destroy, for example, the nuclear industry.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. The fact that Britain could have been leading the Green Revolution, I mean really leading it in terms of its technological changes, and the fact that we let that go with such embarrassment really is appalling. But I think the way that I look at it is that Britain and successive governments have always chosen stick over carrot, and in terms of getting the public to do something. And that is the real issue for me, is that instead of incentivizing the public to do something, it is we have to beat you into doing it, and then whenever there is any opposition to it, you are labelled as something other.
Now, stick and carrot.
Stick and carrot, yes, definitely.
But carrot should always go first.
Yes, definitely.
Always.
And what's more important is that with these technologies, particularly in the green area, they are kind of lying to themselves and lying to the public about how successful they really are, how far down the line we are with this stuff. You know, and when we look at wind farms, for example, we're still paying for them to turn. You know, it's a rather ridiculous. But also situation.
The amount of energy, and I do recognise that. Say, for example, if you burn coal, you burn gas. If you believe some of the nonsense that they say. yeah, I get that as you burn those fuels, you're adding to carbon, and I understand that you're front loading when you're doing the wind farm. It's kind of once it's manufactured and up, and then you have this sort of longer term benefit, if you like. But they only work in certain circumstances, and they're only part of the solution. I've been an electric car driver for the last 15 years, not because I care about the environment particularly, but because it was cheaper.
Yeah.
And they're now making it more and more expensive to buy and to look after and to fill up electric cars. As soon as that financial incentive goes, I'm off.
Yeah,
I much
definitely.
prefer petrol cars.
Yeah,
They're lovely.
Yeah.
Well, the smell of petrol. Now, Peter, we could talk all morning, but we mustn't, because I've been asking the question. Rachel Reeves, she says she knows what needs to be done. I don't think she does, and I think you probably know better. So I'm asking you to tell Rachel Reeves what needs to be done. What needs to be done to achieve this dose of Trump positivity? 0344 499 1000. That's the telephone number. Lenny is in Ashford. Lenny, good morning.
Good morning, James.
Have you missed me?
I have, James. Yes, I must say, truthfully, I have.
Yeah, you almost sound convincing. Anyway, what can you tell us this morning?
Well, I think that the problem with our country, we've got two ministers that do not know what they're doing, and that is
just two.
Reeves.
I thought we had. I thought we had a whole cabinet, Lenny, and a whole parliamentary party.
Well, I totally agree with you there, but there is two that are doing an awful lot of damage.
Yes.
And that is Reeves and Rayner.
Oh, Rayner.
Yes, and they both need to sit down with someone of experience who lives in reality in the real world and put a policy together that encourages growth. Because their policies at the moment, both of them, are killing growth in our country.
And I think that that's really important, which is when you want to encourage growth, what you're really saying is you want entrepreneurs, people with ideas, people who are prepared to work hard, to either work harder, which is when, for example, they gave out those pay rises to doctors and nurses and train drivers and all of that, which I actually support the pay rises per se, but I would have asked for something in return. I would have said, we've got to change the way you work. We've got to make it more efficient. We've got to make it a better job, a better prospect, and better for the country. That things have changed. The way we operate is changing. We can't have an NHS that operates on a 9-to-5 basis. If you're ill, you're ill. You can be ill in the middle of the night. You can be ill during the weekend. We have to have a 7-day-a-week service. It's not, here we are on Talk. People are, here all the time because people have to be here all the time. It's a 7-day-a-week business.
It is, and that is just common sense, James. And
why is it that common sense is lacking, do you think, from either Reeves or Rayner or Starmer?
Well, I think with politicians, their biggest enemy is their ego. And I think, I look at Starmer, and his priority is Starmer. It isn't the country. It isn't the people of our country. His priority is Starmer. And if it furthers his career and puts him up front, that is all he is interested in.
Let me just take that for a second, Lenny, because if that was true, surely what Keir Starmer would want to do is to be popular. And if you look at the polls today, which put Reform first, the Conservatives second, and Labour in third place, then he clearly isn't even brushing his own ego. So there must be something else that's driving it. And I wonder whether it's this... They're so ideologically driven, and they're so keen on taking things away from people who have stuff and equaling out this whole socialist mantra, as opposed to, no, different people do different things. Surely that's part of the problem.
It's all down to votes, James. If you look at the raping gangs, they are the Muslim vote, and Starmer will not upset the Muslim vote for anything, because without the Muslim vote, Labour would not be where they are.
Well, I think there are a lot of people in that community, and indeed others, who are fed up with Labour and what they're saying.